I brought together 3 of the best crypto investors that I have basically ever come across in crypto for a 1-hour masterclass going over basically everything you need to know on how to make millions of dollars from now until the end of this bull run. And these guys collectively have already made over $15 million this cycle, and they're on track to make millions of dollars more. And with Bitcoin just breaking its all-time high, alt season is literally just about to start, so there's never been a better time to make sure you're set up with the correct strategy, with everything that you need to know to crush it into the end of this cycle. Let's get started. All right, guys. So today I have 3 of the best investors that I have come across in the crypto space to basically do a bit of a 1-hour masterclass where we're just going to be talking about how they've made their millions from crypto, what their biggest edge is in the market, what plays they've made so far, and where they basically see the money is going to be for the rest of the cycle. This should be one of the most valuable videos on my YouTube channel so far. I recommend getting out a pen and paper, taking some notes, because there's going to be a lot of valuable information shared. Thank you guys for joining me. First, start off with a little bit of an introduction. Josh, how about you go first? Let us know a bit about yourself.
Great. So thanks for having me. I've been in this market now for just about 10 years, and I'd say that I've been able to successfully grow my equity from 5,000 over 8 figures over this decade. The things that moved the needle the most for me were focusing on the L1 rotations while protecting capital cycle to cycle.
What was like your couple biggest plays, just to mention briefly, that you've
played
had?
Ripple in the beginning. We played Tezos, Ethereum, and Solana. And actually being able to compound and take profit from those and rotate it over produced magnificent results.
Insane, bro. You've done incredibly well, and I'm happy to have you on this call. Tyler, you go next. Give us a little bit of an intro.
Yeah, so my name's Tyler. I started crypto in 2020, but this is honestly my first real proper cycle. And so far this cycle, I've been able to turn $3,000 into just about $500,000 so far this cycle. And as far as my biggest plays go, Caspa, I did a 50x on Caspa. Giga most recently did a 20x. And then Pepe and Popcat have been my more recent plays. We've done about a 4x each on those so far. And my main edge is similar to Josh's. Is I focused early in the bear market on these L1 rotations, and then as this bull market's gone on, I've more so focused on these blue chip meme coins, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, mainly swing trading over a cycle's length, not focusing on as many plays and more quality over quantity.
Yeah, Tyler, you're like young like me, and you're much newer to crypto, and you've managed to do so like really well considering how new you are to the space. And I think it's the fact that you're young and you're really good at doing the fundamental side of things. So I think you'll have a good contribution there. And Erebos, give us a little intro on yourself too.
Hey guys, so Erebos, I have 7 years in crypto, and so I went from 15K to around 10 million at the moment. And I guess my edge or style is high conviction bets with size. So I just wait for an opportunity that I find interesting, and then I go really big on that. I guess, yeah, my track record has been like 100x on Chainlink, and then a couple token sales. And as Josh said, you just compound it. So this cycle also some listings, some trades. But these days I'm very passive in a way, where I'm just going to take a couple trades a year with like really insane size. I mean, well, for me at least.
I mean, you did pretty well on Ondo from what I remember recently. You did like, I think it was an 8x and you made multiple millions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's 4 million. So yeah, that was the big boy of this cycle. And now it's full Solana, like less risky, but it's also going to be a good upside.
Yeah. So I think with all of us here, we've all made majority of our money in a similar way. It wasn't catching 50 different projects, a little bit of a gain on each one. It was a few plays that we made in a more hands-off manner where we held a position for multiple months that made most of all of our guys' wealth, which is interesting, similarity. But I feel like the reason we all had success is probably a bit different for each of us. There's different reasons why we all were able to do really well. Tyler, what do you think is like the main contributor to the success that you've had so far in crypto?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. I'll start off with, first thing for me is like the biggest thing is, having patience and controlling your emotions, which that comes from being in the game. And what I've learned so far is like, if I can honestly stack wins, have a few big bets over a cycle's length, and I'm able to repeat that, that is the goal. And that's what I'm currently on right now. And then the other path that I would say is sort of like paying your tuition and experiencing losses, which I dealt with in 2020. We can dive into that a little later if we get the time. But I think that losses will teach you more about yourself and the markets itself than any lucky win that you could ever have. And once you're really in the arena, you're experiencing the emotions, the FOMO, and you can actually like learn from that. That would be probably the biggest things that helped me succeed over the last few years.
So you feel like compared to most people, you learn more from your losses, would you say?
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you're just on the sidelines watching YouTube videos, you're never really going to like get that that feeling, like when you go down 50% on a play, how are you going to react? Is it borrowed conviction? Is it your own conviction? Do you have a system dealing with those emotions? You're never going to like fail it until you're actually in the game. So that would definitely be the biggest thing that has contributed to my success, is managing emotions and having patience as well, which we'll talk about.
Would you guys agree as well? Anything else you want to add to that?
I think we live in a culture where there's a lot of impatience, and now being around for my third cycle, looking back, every single cycle, there was this idea that people were in this rush as if we were going to go to 100K immediately. It took 3 cycles, essentially. And now that we're on our way there, I think that if you think longer term and you just play like blue chip L1s and you actually secure the equity from these quote unquote safer plays, and you are playing these larger cycles, you will realize that over a decade span, you can reach all your goals that you have. You don't have to go like super heavy on the highest risk curve and just go, shoot your shot at a bunch of meme coins. I don't think that you have to do that. So I would agree with the patience aspect, that you don't have to be on the highest end of the risk curve. You can be somewhere in the middle, but as long as you actually protect your equity cycle to cycle, you're going to come out way beyond your own wildest expectations. You adhere to a system and a process over a long period of time, you'll reach all your goals in this market. Very certain of that.
So it sounds like you're a believer of capitalizing on 80% of what you could make instead of trying to milk 100%. Because when you aim for the 100% of what you can make, where you take on, extreme risk buying super risky coins, you've also opened yourself up to the massive downside that comes with that. Is that what you're trying to say?
I would agree with that. I think especially now, you see a lot of people reaching 100Xs on meme coins, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So many different memes launching. It's a lot more of a diluted space than it was back in 2021 or 2017. And I think that can lead people to go beyond a barbell strategy. Like instead of allocating 2%, they might want to allocate 20 because they want to catch up. And I think, again, that's where you start to lose the patience and you want to just rush the process. That's where you're going to go wrong 100%, because once you start rushing the process and taking on too much risk, you're not going to even be able to manage the position effectively, to where even if it did go up 20 to 30x, you're going to be shaking and quivering every time there's a lot of volatility, because it's beyond your comfort level to begin with. So I think that if you approach it with a barbell strategy, you're using 1 to 2% for very high risk. But my strategy, I like to focus on putting a lot of my equity into the L1 rotations. And if you're actually able to capture that, again, I think cycle to cycle, you're going to end up in a really good spot.
I think if you've got like a tiny portfolio, you're probably going to have to use a much higher percent of your portfolio. But I think you're right. If you have not necessarily a big portfolio, but if you're not like a total broke person, you aim for that middle risk, and in a 5 to 10 year time frame, you're going to get multiple millions. You might not make $1 million in your first year, but you've got a much higher probability of hitting multiple millions in a more normal time span, which would be like 4, 5, 6 years from what you're saying. Erebos, do you have anything? What has been the number one contributor to your success? Is it something different, do you think, from anything we've talked about so far?
Well, it's similar. And of course, I agree with my other partners that say, I heard it recently, being obsessed with something you want to achieve is really the key. Like you just work every day for years and you get better and better and better. That's the way for me to just make it. So I spent 3 years just locked in my apartment to make it. So that was the price to pay. Yeah.
Was that the same for Josh and you guys, Josh and Tyler? Like, have you been like completely obsessive about crypto in a similar way?
I would say I've spent more hours than I should have. I think there comes a point where you realize there's nothing else left to stare at. I've already deduced all probabilities and possibilities. And at this point, the longer I stare, the more likely it is I'm going to make a bad decision. A lot of my biggest mistakes came from selling too early. And I've probably fumbled over 50 mil doing that, thinking that I knew better than the tools that I had or the system that I had. So I would say that, yeah, you do got to put the hours in, because you do need a raw amount of hours. And you got to know, like, for example, a lot of people are buying coins without even tracking relative performance ever. And that's a fatal flaw, because you're just buying fundamentals and you're not really buying what's going to perform the best. And I think if you have a system that can track out the best performers, at the end of the day, that is what you actually want, because you want the highest return. And that's, you're going to come to these conclusions after you spend the hours and realize, what is it that I'm here for? I want the highest return. How can I get that? And you don't always come to those conclusions when you first jump into crypto. When you first jump in, you're just interested in buying whatever is hot. And whatever you hear, somebody else told you that this is great, so you're just going to jump in without doing any homework or whatever. And so, like everything in life, if you want to be great at it, you got to put the hours in. And there's this one idea that I believe it's 1,000 or 10,000 hours, you can become a master at something. You're going to have to put in hours if you want to be a good trader and investor, period. No matter if you're in crypto or in any market at all.
Were you going to add to that, Tyler?
No, I was just Josh said it perfectly. Like, especially in my scenario where I was starting with such little capital. I had no other choice than to be obsessed with it and, scour charts, past data, past history, what made coins go up, like what were key characteristics from the last cycle, which I wasn't able to take advantage fully of. But yeah, just you got to be obsessed with it, especially if you have a small amount. And then the last thing I did want to add too is like when you're starting with a small amount, you have to like earn your way to like allowing yourself to go up the risk curve in a sense. So when I started off, I obviously had to take riskier plays, and then as you build your stack up, you can kind of lay off the risk curve and then play out that longer cycle like Josh was mentioning.
So this will be a good little mental model or way for people to understand how obsessive you have to be. If you guys had to estimate how many hours you've spent on crypto since you got in, what would be a rough estimate of how many hours? For me, I calculated it. I think I can't remember, but it was thousands. It was easily thousands of hours. What would it be for you guys, roughly, do you think?
Yeah, I would add to that and say roughly the same. I've spent too much time. I've gone above and beyond the amount of time that I should have spent. But yeah, thousands of hours. I mean, that's how you come to the conclusion that, okay, Solana's likely going to be the leading L1 for 2023. And you don't get stuck in these, like, as a trader, you don't get stuck in these biases where people are just still heavy on prior L1s. And when you look at the relative performance, you have a very clear winner and you just follow that system. Sometimes it takes years of experience to digest something so simple.
100%. So how many hours for Erebus and Tyler? What's your guess?
Honestly, at least 15,000, honestly, 15, maybe 20,000.
Gosh.
So yeah, master title achieved, I believe.
Fucking hell, you can't even fit more hours in the day, bro. What about you, Tyler? You've been less time in crypto,
yeah,
so yours is going to be lower.
I'm the new kid on the block, so I'd probably say since 2022 November is when I really got into it at the bottom, and probably like a few hours a day for sure, just studying charts. So whatever that equals out to, but definitely putting in the time and looking over the charts is a key.
Yeah, so that's something for everyone watching to keep in mind. It's like these guys have the results you want. Erebus, 15,000 hours. If you're watching this video, think about how many hours you've put in. Have you put in thousands of hours yet? And if the answer is no, then obviously the 15,000 hours maybe isn't the time requirement, but you don't know what your time requirement is. Maybe you need more hours to get to that level. Maybe you need less hours. But the central idea here is just like, you have to be completely obsessed with this stuff to make it work. Otherwise, you're going to get only okay at crypto. You're not going to get good enough in a fast enough time to get an edge over the market, to be able to make money from it. So I feel like, and I always emphasize this, you got to either become the pro or follow the pro. And so you either do the 5,000, 10,000 hours that like these guys are doing, or you'd be wanting to follow someone who's putting in those hours for you. That's sort of the only two paths to make it in crypto. So let's move on to the next question. This is one that I got asked quite a bit, and I feel like people really would love to know the answer to this. So imagine you lost all your money. I don't know, you got scammed on FTX 2.0 or some shit, and you've now got $5,000 to invest into crypto. What is it that you're going to do? How are you going to run it back going forward from today till the end of the bull run, and then even, into the next bull run? What are you going to do? What's your game plan?
For me personally, I think the most important thing when you're starting is to have cash flow coming in, whether that be your own business or swallowing up the pride and getting a job, because you want cash flow coming in. You don't want to rely solely on a few $1,000s to your name in a market. That's insane. You got to swallow up your pride. You got to have some money coming in. And then once you do that, like we just mentioned, you got to study charts 24/7. I was looking at literally every L1 from last cycle, and just trying to digest and take away what made them, what made them succeed. And as far as like running it back again, I would follow only two things, which would be L1s, which is proven cycle over cycle. They're the most profitable every cycle, as well as memes. So those are the two things I would focus on. And then the last thing that I would mention about this I'd definitely make a Twitter account or a Telegram, and I'd network with as many people as possible, because over the years, crypto, it is getting more PvP, and the more people you know, the more data you can bounce off ideas and actually getting more inside information. That's key now. So that would probably be what I would do. And one last thing too, actually, is I'd put 80% in spot immediately. I wouldn't focus with anything with leverage. I'd build a bank of at least 80% spot. And if you want to go a little more with like 10 to 20% active trading to build up that spot bag, you can do that as well. But that is exactly what I did, and that's what I would do again if I had to.
And it's funny you mentioned networking. I mean, it just made me remember, Josh, you were talking about Sui. You had a family friend who, has a connection there, and that's what enabled you to find Sui, and you've done really well on that so far. And it just proves the concept of networking. But what is the answer for you guys? Who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead. I would say that just going back to what I did, 10 years ago, I was at the highest end of the risk curve because, the ability for me to replace that capital was 1 month. I was working a job. And so it was like every month was a ticket for me to get a year's worth of, if I could 10x that money, that was a year. And that's the way I looked at it. I was on the highest end of the risk curve to where, genuinely speaking, if I had $5,000, Bitcoin's going to do nothing for me. Ethereum's going to do nothing for me. Solana's not going to do much for me. It's like I have to be on the highest end of the risk curve. And that either means that I have to be on the cutting edge of Solana infrastructure, Sui infrastructure, or I have to be at the cutting edge of a meme trend. That is literally my only three options. Margin trading wouldn't be an option for me because I think that you can get the same returns as a leverage trader would, finding early trends like Mudang, or being at the very beginning of, again, infrastructure plays. Like, for example, on Sui, there was a trade recently where DeepBook hit the market at a cent, and within 2 or 3 weeks, this was trading at 10 cents. And so that's how I would build up my base again. I wouldn't even focus on the big caps. I didn't start focusing on big caps until I was working with like 200 to 300K. And once I got to that point, I realized that I could L1 it safely to $1 million. And then I could take that money once the cycle ended, and the next cycle I could get it into the Deca Millions in L1s safely. So that's what I would do. You got to be at the cutting edge of infrastructure, the cutting edge of trends, and the cutting edge of, like niche communities like memes. And if you know where to look, and that's where, Tyler comes in and talks about networking, it's important to network because then you'll realize, you'll be able to be earlier on certain trends like Mudang or the next big meme coin or whatever. It's really hard to find on your own when you're just scrolling. When you're just scrolling through Deck Screener and you're just a one-man army, especially now when it's, again, a lot more PvP and it's a lot more diluted, you should have community and just reach out, figure out why certain memes work and why others don't. And then apply that first principles thinking to whatever you see that starts to fit that in the future. So if I had to start with 5,000 again, that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, that's solid. So not much to add on that, but for me, it would be either try to find a new trend on chain. So the last one was GOAT, AI, meme kind of narrative, or I would track what's the best performing coins for the last, like last month, something. Then bookmark all that, and I'll buy that on the next dip. So in the end, it's like you have to take risk and find the real runners with such a small portfolio. I mean, small, relatively.
So it sounds like we'd all do something pretty similar. I would honestly be doing the same thing. I'd be layer ones, memes, and that's pretty much it. Like, not really, I wouldn't be doing AI, gaming, anything like that. I don't really have an edge there. Sounds like we're all pretty much got our edge on memes as well. So that's interesting. So let's go to something a little bit different. You guys have obviously had a lot of success in crypto. Most people haven't. And you see a lot of people online that, they're not doing the numbers that you guys are doing. Maybe they're even losing money. And you probably see a lot of maybe even amateur investors are coming and messaging you like, hey, how do I, make it this cycle? Do you have any advice? What do you feel like is the biggest thing that people are doing wrong that's holding them back from seeing the results that you guys are seeing?
I'll go ahead and start off with this one. I'll say that a lot of people are picking 10 people to learn from and implementing 5% or 2% of those 10 people. Find one person who made it, who has a system, and follow their system to a T. Don't question it. Follow it. If it worked for them, it's likely going to work for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I would say that a lot of people have too much noise in their life. They're scrolling through CT and they're confusing mentors with, shit posting. And part of the shit posting is becoming their actions. And I think that, there's a lot of, pollution. So whenever you find a mentor that has a system and it's worked for him, follow it all the way. You won't ever know if it works if you don't follow it all the way. So that would be my number one advice. I think there's too much dilution of information and people are getting distracted and following a lot of wrong people that they shouldn't be following. They should be following one person that already has a system and that system already worked.
Yeah. For me, it's the same. I have a process, I have a system, Because I remember when I got started, I just deposit 1,000 on an account and buy whatever. Like just scroll. I'm like, oh, maybe this is good. Maybe this is good. What's trending? And you just buy the top of everything. So in the end, yeah, you have to know what you're doing, be very rational, set aside your emotions. In the end, yeah, that's something that comes with time.
Yeah, no, those two nailed it. I'll just add one more thing is just piggybacking off what they said, where people don't take the time to build an edge in one specific area. Like I see many people trying to swing trade one day, maybe buy a low cap meme the next day, do leverage the next day. That's not the way to go. Like Josh said, you're diluting your focus. You want to zero down on one thing, build a specific edge, listen to one person, whether that be you joining a group or someone you trust and respect. Just zeroing down on one specific edge and building that, battle testing that edge. And then also, like we mentioned earlier, not rushing the process, because FOMO is probably the biggest killer. You see coins, you're getting outperformed by other coins, you try and do a rotation, and then you get slammed. So those two things, just building an edge in one specific area and not rushing the process.
That's the biggest thing. It's just I agree, it's having an edge. And I'm glad we all agree on that, because that's what all of you guys have done. One of the first things you talked about is like, what is your edge in the market? It's like as important as literally anything else we could have talked about. So to anyone watching this video, ask yourself that question. Imagine anyone watching this, you got brought on this podcast, and then I asked you, what is your edge that you've been implementing? Most people, they go, oh, well, I follow this guy a couple guys on Twitter, and I just basically copy trade their Twitter polls, and I buy 30% dips, or like they don't really have a proper system. So I'm glad that we all mentioned that. All right, on to the next question. Okay, we sort of covered this at the start, the idea that most people, or at least like in this little group with us, we made most of our wealth from only a couple different plays. And that seems to be true for all of us. So do you think most people try chasing too many different positions without actually, understanding what contributes to making money? Do you agree that the key to making wealth, at least in your experience, is to only have a couple positions? Is that what you do in your portfolio? Do you only focus on a couple plays, or like, do you have 10, 20 different plays? How do you, what do you guys think on this topic?
So I'll jump in on this real quick, and I'll just say that essentially, you need to have a process to where you're interested in buying L1s. You're here to make money. You should take all the L1s and stack them up on top of each other and see who's performing the best. And maybe not just the first, but take the top 3 and then zone in on those, and then see who's performing the best from those 3, and then concentrate capital on that merit. I think, again, a lot of people are not following, they're buying fundamentals instead of performance, when at the end, the only thing you're going to be counting is dollars. So I think that, yeah, a lot of people do focus on too much. And again, I think part of the problem is there's noise pollution. Every other week there's a new meme. Every other, people are trying to tell you why Psi is amazing, why TIA is amazing, why Solana is amazing, why Ethereum's coming back. And I think that you need to have a system that will differentiate what's worth paying attention to and what's not worth paying attention to. And by virtue of the system, you will narrow down your decisions to make. And also, a cardinal sin in a bull market is jumping around from position to position, not letting any thesis fully materialize, and then not capturing the bulk of anything and just getting chopped left and right. That's another cardinal sin that I remember from prior cycles. My first cycle, I was hopping around everywhere, trying to capture this, trying to capture that. If you're not a pro, don't try to rotate. Stick to a thesis that you can see fully through. And again, you should have some bit of a system that allows you to focus on what is truly important. Out of all these 10 AI coins, what's the best performer? Out of all these L1s, what's the best performer? So you don't have to get sidetracked. That's what I would say.
Okay, I'll go. For me, yeah, it's really filtering opportunities. I used to do that even not too long ago. That's why I say high conviction bets. It's just sometimes you're going to feel like something is really worth it. You're going to waste your time, risk capital for nothing. So you need to find the best risk reward setups and things that you can size into comfortably. So for me, that's really the key. You don't have to catch 10 rabbits, just one, and make a 20x. That's just it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'll keep it short. You guys nailed it with those two answers. Basically, all the smartest people I know, the majority of the money they've made have been from a handful of properly sized plays with conviction and letting a thesis play out. And obviously my path has been no different from that. I don't want to overcomplicate it. And from me personally, like I've been able to over 100x my portfolio from the very beginning of the bull market with 5 plays. So don't overcomplicate it. Let that sink in what I just said. And it's all about the quality of your plays and the conviction and the process, like Josh was talking about with cutting losers and comparing performance.
Yep. To anyone watching this video, think about how many coins you've bought and sold this cycle. And then think about the fact that Tyler has bought 5 coins which have contributed to 100x. And then maybe, think for a second, oh, okay, maybe my strategy is too active. Maybe I'm trying to buy too many things. Maybe I'm not sitting back and allowing myself to wait for only the highest conviction play to come about. But one thing to add is that high conviction is something that you generally develop through pattern recognition and intuition, which takes years to build. If you're new to crypto, you're probably not going to be able to spot a high conviction play because you haven't learnt what that even is, how to even spot it, what it even feels like. So if you're new to crypto, you probably got to speed run it, buy a bunch of coins, sort of smash through all the mistakes as quick as possible. But if you've been in crypto for, a few years, now getting to the period where it's like, okay, time to start making money. Now you can sort of know what a high conviction play is. Another way to know what a high conviction play would be to basically be researching the prior success of what worked in the last cycle. And really, you're not going to get the pattern recognition that you would get from experiencing from firsthand being in the last cycle. But if you research the last cycle enough, you'll get sort of a close equivalent. I think you do this, Tyler. You talked about how you looked at every single successful prior L1 and you researched them and you figured out, why did this one do well? Why did this one do bad? And you researched it to such a point where you didn't experience it firsthand, but you've looked at it in enough depth that you can now spot the patterns in the same way that someone who went through it did. And there's another guy that we all know, Mark, who is also new to crypto, but he has been able to really focus on learning from the past to be able to navigate these periods of the market that he's never been in, right? If a market cycle is a circle and you haven't explored the top half, he's researched it to the point where he can go through the top half having never done it before and know what to do because he's read enough into it. So I think that seems to be a important takeaway as well. So I hope you've been enjoying watching this video so far. Just a heads up for everyone watching this, the 3 analysts that you're listening to talk right now, I just brought them this week as analysts inside of my private mastermind community, where they're going to be basically sharing everything that they're doing from now until the end of this bull run. So all the coins that they're buying, when they're buying them, when they're selling them, exiting at the end of the bull run, they're going to be sharing everything. So if you want to learn from the exact strategies that I'm implementing and these 3 guys who've already made $15 million this cycle and they're going to make millions more, you'll find a link to that group that you can join in the description below. So let's get back to the interview. On to the next question. Was following calls on Twitter a contributor to any of your guys' wealth? This is actually a good question. Was any of the highest conviction plays, was any of the, the coins that you bought that contributed massively to your wealth, was it a coin that you found on Twitter or was it something that you researched yourself? Like, did you copy trade a Twitter guy or was it all from your own system?
Actually, yeah, for me, Chainlink, it was on YouTube, Chico Crypto, I think. And no, to be fair, if you have a really qualitative Twitter following, or like people you follow, I think it's worth it. I know I've made a lot of money from following the right person. So yeah, no, to be fair, of course you're gonna also get destroyed, but if you follow the right person and you also do your own analysis, it's useful, yeah.
So for me, I've actually gone the opposite route. I've never made a substantial amount from, people calling stuff on YouTube or Twitter. And the reason being is, like Dan mentions this too a lot, is like borrowed conviction versus your own conviction. And when you have this borrowed conviction, stuff goes down maybe 50%. Like you don't have your own thesis, your own process to vet a coin. It definitely plays with your emotions more. And that's what I did originally in the 2020 cycle. Is I didn't have any process. I didn't have any of my own conviction. I was borrowing conviction, and that was a recipe for disaster for me, at least. That's why I made my own process, my own checklist, and now I use people calling stuff as just more so like correlation or, seeing if other smart people I know, like you guys, have other thoughts about it. But yeah, no, I haven't found success through that.
I would add and say that there was a few trades. I'd say Ripple was not my idea, and that was obviously because I was new to the market, so I was just following whatever I was hearing online. But as I developed a system as time went on, I would run other people's ideas that I respected through my system to see if it actually made sense for a trade. I would have my own parameters for a stop loss. I'd have my own position sizing based on my comfortability. So I think looking at reading other people's ideas is fine as long as you run it through your own system, and then it checks the boxes through your system too. If it doesn't, then, so I'd stress the importance of having your own system. That obviously more data is not bad. Finding people that are successful in the space and listening to what they have to say, that's great. More eyes, the better, but you should run it through your own system. You should never make it a habit to blindly follow anyone, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's like a good nuanced answer here. And I think Josh, you summed it up really well. In my experience, I don't think following people on Twitter really made me like much money at all. I don't think my feed is as curated as Erebos's is, I think. And also, Erebos, you said, what was the coin you found from Twitter originally? Was it Ripple, was it? Or
no, like Chainlink on YouTube.
Chainlink, sorry. You found it from YouTube. Yeah, that's a good example of one that you found. But I'm sure, Erebos, what you did was you saw it mentioned, and then like Josh said, you ran it through your system, and then it fit all the criteria for your system, and then you made money from it. Is that what you did at the time?
Yeah, indeed. I'm not saying blindly follow anyone, but you have to hear about a coin somewhere. So if you have a smart group of people on Twitter, it's very useful. Kind of like your group mastermind is very useful to get some insights on different things. So yeah, you get some data, and then it's up to you to do something with it.
Yeah, in my experience, like obviously some coins you find from your own research, like if you're in the trenches, but a lot of the time it's someone else, whether it's on a YouTube video, whether it's in a group that you're in, or a friend that you have that mentions a coin, and then that sparks the initial interest, where you look into it for 30 seconds, you go, oh shit, this actually could be good. You do your research, you apply your system to it, and then you realize, okay, this thing's really, really solid. I find that that's how I'm personally finding a lot of things. It's like people talking, and they've done the initial research, or they've seen someone else talk about it, then they've looked at it, liked it, then they've mentioned it to you, you like it, and then you end up buying it. I find that's honestly like a pretty good way to go about things. In terms of fundamental analysis, let's talk about the fundamentals. Obviously, you all have a different system for determining fundamentals, but is there any non-negotiables that you guys, is there anything that like is an immediate red flag, or is there any like must-haves for a project for you to invest into it? Like, do you guys have a list or anything like it must have this, must have that?
I'll go ahead and get started on that one. I'd say that community is important. Community is very important. You know that across memes and L1s. If you don't have a strong community, you have nothing. There was many coins back in the day that, like Tezos, they had a war chest of 400 mil. It meant nothing. So community is very important. I also want to see fundamental development in regards to they're adding something new, something like, for example, like Sui, their entire language was a language that was developed for blockchain specifically. And so that was sort of novel in and of itself to me. But I would say that, for me and my criteria, I want to see it listed on majority of exchanges. I want it to be liquid, and I want it to have strong community, and I want it to have a fundamental development that is exceeding the technology that came before. Something that's like sort of like a 0 to 1 effect. If it's not a 0 to 1, then we want a 0 to 0.5. Something that pushes the needle, especially in this space. Everything is constantly evolving at such a rate that the investments of 4 years ago are pretty much irrelevant today, most of them. So you want to be at the cutting edge. And for me, those are the main criteria that I would look for.
Yeah, no, that I'll just piggyback off that a little, though. That's definitely on my list as well. For L1 specifically, I do also like to look at the teams and if they've done like prior stuff in the past. And then also piggybacking off how we said like that unique proposition, or that 0 to 1, as well as community is important. One other thing which actually initially helped me find Caspa back in 2022 was relative performance to the market as a whole. So let me just elaborate a little bit more on that. So back in like November of 2022, when the whole world was crashing, when FTX was actually like going bankrupt, and Tom Brady was getting sued, like the whole world was ending for crypto. And that was when Bitcoin like plummeted, like made its final low around like, I forget what it was, like 16K or something like that. As Bitcoin was making its literal low in the entire market, Caspa, the one that I found, it was actually consolidating above all-time highs. So that was one thing that was like sparked me immediately. Immediate interest was this sort of relative performance across the whole market while one of the biggest liquidation events in crypto history just occurred. So that is something that works well in a bear market too. I'm definitely going to use that again. But that's one of the biggest things that I do look for when I'm analyzing a coin, especially in when times are not as well in the markets.
Yeah, that's a big one. I remember you mentioning that, the fact that the market was crashing to new lows and Casper had this insane strength. And then it ended up outperforming for like, over half of it was outperforming pretty much everything for like half of the bull run, which is...
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. Like crypto was in its absolute worst state and Casper was consolidating above all-time highs. Like that just lit off an immediate siren to look into it.
100%. And I find something else is like, with a lot of these plays that I've heard you guys do really well on, for a lot of them, there was some sort of information that you had gathered that no one else would have been able to basically gather to help you get a unique insight into that investment. So for example, Josh, when you've been talking about SWE, and SWE has been outperforming since you've been mentioning it, and you mentioned the fact that you knew people on the team and how they basically have a SEAL 6 team of engineers. I'm sure you can talk about it more. And that unique insight gives you an insight into the particular coin that basically no one else in the market could have because of your connection to the team. And I find for some of the coins that I've done really well on, for example, I did really well on Solana. It was my connection to a guy that used to be a systems engineer for the biggest tech companies in the .com bubble, and he's just as big as he was back then, as he's now in crypto as a trader, as a basically power user of the Solana chain for trading and different things. And he always told me like Solana is different. This is like a different level of team. And that has ended up coming true. And I made a lot of money from that, just from that unique insight. But I had from a guy that no one else could talk to, doesn't post about it on social media. That insight is not available anywhere else. So for me, that would be not necessarily a non-negotiable. I have to have it. But if I do have a unique insight that no one else in the market is able to get, that's an edge. That's an edge that no one else can have. And I find it's always good to try to find things like that. And obviously, that's why it's important to network, like Tyler said, to be able to get access to those sort of insights. What is your guys' approach to getting into a position, to getting allocated? Let's say you find a high conviction play. Do you tend to buy all at once? Do you scale in? Like, let's talk a bit more about like your guys' strategy for sort of the accumulation of an asset, and we can talk about the selling after that.
Well, I'd say it depends on where you are in the cycle. That's a very big component because you can't expect to get, sub 30K type pricing on certain alt positions whenever you want. We had an 8-month consolidation period on Bitcoin recently, and when we had the panic event at 49K, that should be sort of a flagpole as to that's probably the best I'm going to get. So as the cycle continues, you don't just get to enter whenever you want. There's a time to be patient, and then there's a time to recognize that, okay, I'm at this stage in the cycle now, and that, I'm going to take whatever I can get, whatever dip I can get. If I don't have any position at all, I may start scaling in at current market prices, and then every dip after that, I'll start to slowly increase exposure to it. So again, this is really going to depend on, where you're coming into the cycle at. If your position, for example, in SUI from like 60 to 80 cents or $1, you're probably sitting really comfortable. But if you have no position at all, and Bitcoin just broke all-time high, you can't expect to get a dip back to like 60 cents. We're coming out of the range completely. So you're going to have to adjust your expectations, and you're going to have to adopt a more aggressive strategy because the escalation in strength is developing as well. So how you model your entries is going to look a lot different than an accumulation range.
Yeah, agreed. To me, it depends really on the situation. Of course, sometimes you have no time to feel. That the token is a ticking bomb, so I would rather get in pretty fast. But these days, I really love splitting my buys that way, because the problem is if you buy, like, let's say, full stack on something and it goes down, you're immediately under pressure. So I love these days, maybe I'll buy 30% today and 30% in the next days. That way, it's a gradual build-up. And, it's just emotionally, mentally a little bit easier. But of course, it depends on a lot of factors. But yeah, I would advise people to maybe not get in and out at once all the time. It's a bit brutal. Sometimes it's better to like ease up and ease out.
No, I totally agree. And it also pays to pay attention when no one's paying attention so you can get your better entries in. For example, like when Bitcoin had that crash down to 49K, that was a blessing when alts went down 50% or so in a few days. That's the best time to position, but obviously you don't get those entries all the time. For me personally, I never full stack. I'll usually enter a position through like 3 to 4 buys, I would say. So probably like 25 to 30% each buy, and I'll wait for pullbacks again. It is something that I do need to work on. I don't have like an exact system on entering. It's more so just like intuition and reading each chart differently. But yeah, I would advise probably not full stacking, especially at this stage. Definitely wait for pullbacks because it is. But if you do have conviction, definitely secure a position. That would be my advice.
I think the tricky part with this question is the answer is like it depends.
It does depend.
Situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I asked these questions because I asked everyone in my group to send me questions to ask you guys. And a lot of these questions, there is no like blanket answer. You know, I feel like for other ways to make money in the world, like for example, if you're trying to make a business, there's more like a direct answer of what's a good and a bad thing to do. But for crypto, the space evolves every day where what worked even last week might not work today. And so like, there's no there's no exact perfect formula for how you should buy an asset. There's never going to be. So it always evolves. And anyone watching this, like, you have to understand that like what has worked for these guys will, some parts of it will continue to be lessons that you can use to make money from, but the strategies even these guys are using is going to evolve, every single year as the market is changing. Maybe they full stacked a coin in the last bear market. Maybe now they're doing a different sort of accumulation strategy now. The one piece of advice that you would give anyone watching this that is trying to make it, let's say someone's been in crypto for not enough time to make money. They've been in for like 1 or 2 years. Maybe they've made a little bit of money, lost a little bit of money. They haven't really done too much. What's like the biggest piece of advice for someone who's in that position where they're trying to make millions of dollars, they're trying to, achieve all their financial goals from the market?
I would go ahead and say that, you need to have stress tolerance and stress resilience. This market will test you in many ways, even being an expert and being advanced. As the numbers grow, you will be tested. I think that if you have a system that you follow, then you can lean on that system and that you're not going to be as stressed out. If you're just following someone else and you don't have any system of your own, your stress tolerance is going to be very low. And you're not going to have any logic to confront those emotions. Whenever you have emotions, if you can confront it with, hard logic, you'll be able to kind of have a higher stress tolerance. But if you're just, acting like a headless chicken, your stress tolerance is going to, you're not be there. And essentially you're going to end up running into a wall. And I'd say have patience and play this, think about the long term. You're trying to build skills that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I hope that you're not just a tourist coming in and, I just want to make 10 million and leave and never come back. It doesn't work like that. All the people that made 10 million can't leave, and they're not leaving and they're staying. And some of them round tripped it with really foolish mistakes. So have patience and follow a system and a process that is going to incorporate your longevity. Don't take trades or make investments that make you lose sleep at night. The moment that you start going there, that's not long-term sustainable. You're going to blow up or you're going to make bad decisions. So you really do have to operate within this realm of sustainability and longevity if you truly want to make it long-term. Don't be a tourist. Don't think like a tourist because you probably won't even make it thinking like a tourist.
Who's up next?
Yeah, let me go for it. I was about to say, just being in the market, just keep playing the game, and you'll find many, many opportunities. You'll have countless opportunities to print. And what to say? Yeah, it's just you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna miss out on some things, but still, at the end of the day, if you keep at it long enough, you'll make a lot. We can all share some stories about missing this or that, making mistakes that were really crazy. Like we could all be 10 times richer, but still, you just have to catch a few plays and you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it light to end it. I mean, this like crypto, it's the greatest market in the world. Like you can genuinely come in with a few $1,000s and turn that into 7 figures over a few cycles length if you really put your mind to it, build your own process like Josh was saying. But yeah, I just want to reiterate like what I've been saying throughout this whole call is don't do it by yourself. Connect with people, whether that's through Twitter, Telegram, however you connect with people. Build your own edge, and most importantly, like find your own timeline. When you look at crypto from a basis of compounding your net worth over cycles lengths, that really takes the pressure off you of like, I need to make it tomorrow. Like I need to get this winning play right now. You have to look at it over that long horizon, and just have fun with it. Because if you genuinely put the time in and you connect with the right people and you put the hours in, it's only a matter of time until you get your breakthrough.
That piece of advice about the timeline actually super important. Not many people talk about that either. The idea that like, because so many people in the groups that I run, they're trying to rush making millions of dollars. They're all aiming to make millions of dollars in their first cycle. And as much as it would be great to do that, even if you made your millions of dollars in 2 cycles or 3 cycles, that's still an amazing outcome. I think people don't actually understand how much time it's taken for people to get the results that they've had. For example, Josh has been in the market for 10 years, right? He didn't have 8 figures after his first year. It took many, many years to get to that point. Whereas a lot of people, they want to rush it. I want to come into crypto my first year with 200K and I want to make $3 million in my first year. It's like not even the best people in crypto did that. You've got to pay your tuition. And I think my biggest piece of advice would be you have to pick a path. You either follow a pro or you become a pro. You have to look at, how have, the people who've made all this money, what do they do? Like, look at what they did. They either got really, really good, like you guys, you mastered a certain way to approach crypto that made you a lot of money. Or there's the other people who are more like, I just follow, this guy that gives really, really good advice. And he said to buy this and I trust him and I copied what he said and I made a bunch of money. That's the only 2 outcomes I've really seen work in crypto. So I've got one final question for you guys. This is going to be a little bit of some alpha for people who are watching this now for what, they should be focusing on for the rest of the cycle. So from now until whenever the bull run tops, whenever that is, what is the sector that you guys think is most important to focus on? Is there any like sort of current trends that are worth focusing on now? And then what are some coins that you guys are holding or excited about going forward? So there's the 3 things, the sort of sector, so meme coins, AI, any trends within the sector, and then particular coins.
I'll start off with this one. I'd say that just going to keep it really simple. I'm excited about L1s that are pushing the envelope on what's technologically possible and adding to what Solana has achieved and actually going above and beyond that. I mentioned it before that essentially, Sui is the first big tech chain. The developers are coming from a large big tech company. And that is something that is very interesting to me, because to me, it's like the big boys have arrived and now they're building, and these developers are no joke and the team is no joke. And so I'm very excited about that. And I think that Sui has potential to fulfill the promises that Ethereum was set out to create. I think that Sui has the potential to do what Ethereum was meant to do from the very beginning. Second of all, I'm interested in infrastructure on Solana. I don't think that Sui's fully all there yet, but I'm interested about this. I'm interested in this project called IO, and we do have a positioning in that, and that's essentially a decentralized grid of GPUs that you can rent out whenever you want, and that opens up all kinds of possibilities, like having a democratized, chat GPT. And you can use that for all sorts of applications. Instead of using AWS, you can rent out this hardware for a lot cheaper. And I think that narrative combined, with seeing what happened with NVIDIA and the stock market, this has potential to move a lot. And it is a very small cap. It's like 200 mil. So I'm interested, and I'm really honestly not that interested in memes. So for me, it's just L1 rotation. Who's the strongest L1 right now? What is its promise? And then some infrastructure on Solana like IO. Those are my main 2 things that I've been really zoned in on this past month and a half.
Nice. So I'll finish it off here as well. For me personally, I am focused on the meme space moving forward for the rest of this run, and in particularly, for me personally, with my situation, I'm focused on more of like the blue chip memes, if that even is a thing. However, I do see a flight to quality with memes where Obviously, there's memes launching every day. I think a lot of those will get washed out eventually, and the few memes that do rise to the top are going to be ones that capture the most mind share, listed on all central exchanges. And I think that is what is going to be the top outperforming coins throughout the rest of the run. So that is what I am focused on personally. And I'll give two coins that I'm currently in right now. I'm in Pepe and Popcat, and that is my Ethereum beta and then my Solana beta. Those are the two coins that I currently hold the biggest positions in. And I do think, I'll throw a little ball in here, I do think Ethereum is going to start its outperformance against Bitcoin after Bitcoin puts its next leg in. Maybe a hot take, but from prior cycles, Ethereum does start to outperform after Bitcoin does make its initial push past all-time highs. So stay tuned on that. I'm still more bullish on Solana. I think Solana will outperform all, but that is where I'm looking at right now in the current sectors. And obviously, as a few more plays come in, we'll put them in the chats, and we'll capitalize on those as well.
Depending, of course, on your portfolio, if you have a small one, large one. In my case, I'm going to be focused on trading alts because you can look at the BTC dominance. We can expect pretty crazy pumps across like the main alts. Of course, it's going to trickle down from big caps to medium caps and all the way to on-chain, really micro. But yeah, of course, memes are the way to play this cycle. Honestly, there is nothing better, best performers, etc. So yeah, honestly, it's very simple. Just either you trade, new trends, or you focus like me on technical analysis and you find setups for like the crazy alt season when an alt can 3x in a week. That's going to be the game for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty good list right there for the guys watching this video who want a couple coin calls. But if you're watching this 6 months from now, obviously don't action this. So thank you guys for coming on. This has been really, really good, really valuable, really good answers overall. Just for everyone, so that they're aware watching this video, all of these guys are analysts inside of my mastermind community, and they're going to be sharing all the plays that they're doing, all the meme coin stuff, all the new L1s. So if you want to get access to all the way that these guys are making money from now to the end of the cycle and all the ways that I'm making money, you can find a link to that in the description below. But thank you guys for coming on. This was really, really good. If you guys like this video, let me know in the comments if we should do a part 2. We may consider it in the future. All right, thank you guys for watching this podcast. Hope you got a lot of value from it. Now, again, if you are looking to follow the exact strategies and the coins that these guys are buying, when they're buying them, basically just have the entire game plan from now to the end of the bull run made simple for you, these guys are going to be giving away all the coins that they're buying inside of my private mastermind community. You'll find a link to that in the description below. Also, if you want to join my free Telegram community, I post in there daily rants, going over the market, going over anything that I'm seeing. It's completely free. You'll find a link to that below as well. But thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.